Hello, everyone, and welcome to this deep dive into authentic British English. Today, we're heading to the heart of the English countryside, the fictional village of Ambridge. We'll be listening to clips from the world's longest-running radio soap opera, The Archers, broadcast on BBC Radio 4. This particular episode is a masterclass in how rural life, family secrets, and personal relief shape the way people speak. We've selected 3 idiomatic expressions that are not only common in the UK but carry specific social nuances here. You'll hear characters navigating health scares, discussing glamorous travels, and worrying about a father's erratic behavior. As you listen to the following sequences, pay close attention to the tone and context. These aren't just phrases from a textbook, they are living examples of how native speakers express complex emotions. Let's jump into our first clip.
Ridiculous. And Stella was walking on eggshells around me. I understood why, but I wanted to scream.
Pip, if anything like this happens again, call me, you hear?
Yeah, I will. Yeah. They aspirated the cyst there and then.
Yeah? How was it?
Oh, not nice. But I was getting rid of it, so I didn't care. They say it may come back, but it's not cancer.
Oh, so that's why you woke up full of the joys of spring this morning. The relief.
I didn't realise how tense I was till I wasn't. Oh, I had the best night's sleep. And Stella took Rosie to school, and I had coffee and walnut cake for breakfast.
Not the whole time, obviously.
Yeah, I should think not. Must be nice having someone to swan around all these glamorous places with.
It is.
Well, where are you off to next?
Well, he's going to Budapest next month. I've always fancied going there, so I'm looking into the trains.
Well, maybe the 4 of us could go out sometime when he's back.
The 4 of us? Oh, it's a proper thing then, you and Alice.
I think so, yeah.
Only think.
Well, we're getting on really well, but, she's way out of my league, Kirsty.
Oh, stop it, Rex. You always do that.
But you didn't do anything.
I confessed to George, and I'll confess to the police before I let Rory take the blame. Well?
And this is why you've been behaving the way you have.
Yes.
And now Alice and Kate and maybe Debbie think you're losing the plot.
Well, that's a storm I'll have to weather, isn't it? Because I'm not going to let Rory down. I won't let his life fall apart, Lillian. I just won't.
Now that you've heard these expressions used in the heat of the moment, let's break them down. I'm going to unpack the definitions, the specific Ambridge context, and those crucial advanced nuances, like why Brian's family thinks he's losing the plot, so you can start using them with confidence.
All right, hello and welcome. If you're an advanced English learner trying to get your head around the unwritten rules of British conversation, then you have come to exactly the right place. Think of this as your advanced field guide to the British temperament. So let's dive right in. So what if I told you that one of the UK's biggest cultural institutions isn't a museum or a monument, but a radio show about a farming village? I know, right? But for over 75 years, millions have been absolutely hooked. Today, we're going to decode The Archers and uncover the secret language and hidden social codes that make this fictional world feel so incredibly real. To really get a sense of this, just think about this one year, 1951. This is before rock and roll, before the internet, before most people even had color TV, and The Archers was already on the air. It's this single, continuous story that has been unfolding in real time right alongside modern Britain. Just wild. So this is the big question we're tackling today. How on earth can a radio show that's been on the air for 75 years possibly unlock the secrets of modern British English? Well, it might sound a little strange, but as you're about to see, this isn't just any old soap opera. It's a living, breathing language laboratory. All right, first things first, let's step inside our living language laboratory. So let me paint you a picture. Welcome to Ambridge. Now, this place might be fictional, but it is the perfect natural habitat for what we're doing today. It's a place where every single conversation is just layered with nuance, understatement, and a ton of cultural subtext. So you might be asking, why here, of all places? Well, it's because BBC Radio 4's The Archers is so much more than just entertainment. I mean, it is this incredible, unbroken daily window into rural British life. It captures everything from the changing seasons to those deep, unspoken anxieties, which makes it an amazing resource for real, natural language. And the longevity is just staggering, really. It started way back in 1951 and is heading towards its 75th anniversary. The reason The Archers has stayed so relevant is because all its drama is grounded in the authentic, everyday routines of its community. That's a 75-year-long conversation, and we're about to lean in and listen close. I mean, you can see the journey right here, from its debut just after the war, all the way to its upcoming 75th anniversary. So what's the secret? How has it lasted this long? Well, it's a masterclass in anchoring huge dramatic moments in the simple, authentic, day-to-day routines of country life. Okay, now for the really fun part. We're going to get our hands dirty. Let's talk about how we're going to collect and dissect our linguistic specimens. You know, it's funny. In the show itself, the characters actually go out and do these yearly wildlife surveys. So we thought, hey, let's do the same thing, but with language. We're going to pull out 3 key idioms and treat them just like scientific specimens, dissecting them to reveal all the cultural meaning that's hidden deep inside. And that brings us right to our first specimen. This is an idiom that just perfectly captures the linguistic expression of extreme, overwhelming relief.
Okay, first up, we have an absolute classic expression of pure happiness. We're going to look at a character named Pip, who has just been through a really, really stressful time.
Okay, first, let's hear this one in its natural habitat. So the character Pip has spent days absolutely terrified that she has cancer. Then she gets the all clear. Her aunt Lillian observes, "Oh, so that's why you woke up full of the joys of spring this morning, the relief." And Pip says, "I had the best night's sleep, and I had coffee and walnut cake for breakfast." Did you catch that? That huge shift in tone and the simple, cozy way she celebrates?
So get this. After a major health scare turns out to be a false alarm, Pip's whole mood just completely flips. And that contrast is so important here. She goes from being worried sick to, just beaming with joy. So the definition itself is pretty simple. It just means you're in a fantastic mood. You're lively, you're energetic, and you're just really enthusiastic about everything. And the image it creates is just perfect, isn't it? I mean, think about the actual season of spring. You've got sunshine, flowers blooming, new life, all this vibrant energy. This idiom just takes all of those amazing feelings and slaps them right onto a person's mood. But here's where it gets really interesting. It's not just for being happy. It's often used to show a huge change in mood, just like we saw with Pip. Or, and this is very British, it can be used ironically. So if your friend is just moaning and complaining about everything, you might say, "Well, you're full of the joys of spring today," which of course means the complete opposite. So quick teacher's tip here. 2 things you got to remember. First, always keep the S on joys. It's plural, joys of spring. And second, it is the perfect phrase for describing that happy rebound when someone bounces back from a really bad mood into a fantastic one.
Let's put this phrase under the microscope. So literally, you've got this rural, seasonal image, right? New life popping up after a long, hard winter. Behaviorally, it suggests high energy, pure happiness. But here's the real key, the bit that makes it advanced English, the subtext. You don't use this phrase for just any old good mood. It's specifically for a dramatic rebound from gloom, anxiety, or even terror. That's the advanced meaning.
Let's explore the phrase, "full of the joys of spring," which means being unusually happy and upbeat. For example, when the character Pip gets a clear test after a gloomy health scare, she bounces back feeling totally cheerful. Now, here's a quick teacher's tip for you. Pay attention to the letter S in joys, because this idiom almost always uses the plural form. But let's shift from that literal, cheerful definition to the darker, more complex way people actually use it. Finally, we hit the advanced nuance of British irony. British speakers frequently drop this warm idiom with gentle teasing or outright sarcasm when there's a stark contrast in mood. If someone is full of the joys of spring right after losing a major contract, they're clearly miserable. Isn't it wonderfully typical that a phrase meant to celebrate sunshine and new life is weaponized by the British to point out when someone is absolutely miserable?
All right, let's move on to specimen number 2. And this one is absolutely loaded with the subtle dynamics of class and envy.
Which is just a brilliant example of that subtle British criticism. It's a way of saying something pretty sharp, but in a very soft, almost elegant way. So in this scene, we have Rex. He's a guy who works hard out in the muddy countryside, and he's talking about his friend's boyfriend, Eric, who gets to travel to all these fancy places like Budapest. Can you just hear that little hint of envy, that bit of judgment in his voice? He's not just saying what Eric does, he's making a comment about it. And that's exactly what this phrase captures. Swanning around means moving about without a care in the world, maybe looking a little too glamorous or acting just a little more important than you actually are.
Okay, so picture this. You've got Rex, a guy who works the land, he works hard, and he's listening to Kirsty talk all about these glamorous European trips she's taking. And he says, it must be nice having someone to swan around all these glamorous places with. Can you just hear that tiny little drop of judgment in his voice? That contrast between his world and hers? Let's peel back the layers on this one. The literal image? It's a beautiful, elegant swan just gliding along without a care. Behaviorally, it means to travel in this really relaxed, carefree way. But oh, that's subtext. That's where all the action is. It is heavy with judgment. It implies the person is a bit posh, maybe has a little too much free time, and that's a really sharp contrast when the person saying it feels grounded by hard work.
And that's really where the genius of the insult is, right? We all know how elegant and graceful a real swan is. But when you apply it to a person, you're kind of twisting it. You're implying their elegance is just a performance, maybe covering up some laziness or arrogance. You know, this gets at something so quintessentially British. Instead of just coming out and saying, ugh, he's arrogant and lazy, which is super direct, someone might say, oh, he just swans around all day. It's a much softer, more socially acceptable way to land a pretty sharp criticism.
And you can literally see it right here. The contrast couldn't be clearer. On one side, you have the muddy, gritty reality of physical work, and on the other, this sophisticated ease of swanning around. In a moment like that, the phrase becomes this little verbal jab, a subtle class weapon used to highlight that socioeconomic divide.
So, when would you actually use this? Well, picture this. Someone acting all posh, gliding through the office with their fancy coffee while everyone else is working their tails off. Yep, that is a classic case of swanning around.
Let's look at the idiom to swan around. It just means moving from place to place in a relaxed, carefree, or kind of self-important way. Culturally, it's how British English indirectly criticizes arrogance. A softer, yet way sharper way of calling out someone who's acting upper class, lazy, or showy. Second, we see this right in Ambridge when the character Rex complains about Eric traveling to glamorous places like The Hague and Budapest. It directly contrasts Eric's sophisticated lifestyle with Rex's own muddy, hard, rural work. Plus, the animal imagery of a graceful swan perfectly fits the show's nature-heavy dialogue, which is just full of references to beavers and buff-tailed queens. Finally, how do you use it? Well, you can swan around, swan about, or swan in and out. Here's a quick teacher's tip. Use this phrase for everyday family complaints when someone is acting posh and letting everyone else do the actual work. Like, while I cleaned the kitchen, he was just swanning around. So the next time someone is avoiding the heavy lifting while acting like absolute royalty, you've got the perfect Ambridge-approved phrase to call them out for just swanning around.
And this is where it gets really interesting, because that connection to nature just bleeds directly into the language people use every day. An idiom like full of the joys of spring isn't just a random saying. It's used by a character to show this deep, profound relief after a health scare. And the phrase to swan around, yeah, it's not just about birds. It's a loaded term to describe a glamorous, maybe even lazy, carefree lifestyle. These are precise emotional tools, and they're all rooted in the land.
And now for our final specimen. And trust me, this one is maybe the most versatile of all. It can mean anything from a tiny, minor hiccup to, well, a complete system meltdown.
It's super common and it's incredibly versatile. It can be anything from a lighthearted joke to a really serious concern, which is actually what we see happening in the village of Ambridge.
Okay, so the context here is, wow, it's just incredibly dramatic. Brian's son, Rory, did something violent. To protect him, Brian lies and takes the blame. But his strange, secretive behavior makes his daughters think he's developing dementia. Lillian tells him, Alice and Kate think you're losing the plot. And Brian, just think about this. To protect his son, he accepts this awful misunderstanding and just says, well, that's a storm I'll have to weather, isn't it?
Now, in this case, it's actually pretty serious. The family is genuinely worried. Brian is acting, well, strangely. He's being secretive, and his daughters are afraid he might be losing his grip on reality. maybe because of something serious, like dementia. So the phrase here carries some real weight. So what does it mean? Well, the definition is kind of broad, and that's on purpose because context is everything. It can mean anything from just being a bit confused to someone acting in a completely irrational way.
So, let's break this one down. The literal image is simple. You've lost the storyline, forgotten where you are in a book. Behaviorally, it means you're getting confused, you can't cope. But its real power, where it gets all its flexibility, is in the subtext. It's such a staple of conversation, and its meaning is incredibly versatile. It is all about the context. And, the spectrum here is just huge. On the totally lighthearted end, you could say you're losing the plot, just because you can't find your keys. But on the serious end, like in Brian's story, it describes a profound tragedy, the fear of dementia, a complete break from reality. The exact same 3 words can carry these vastly different weights.
Okay, I absolutely love where this phrase comes from because it makes it so easy to remember. Think about it. A story, like in a film or a book, has a plot, right? A logical flow of events. If the story loses the plot, it just stops making sense. And that's exactly what happens when a person loses the plot. Their actions stop making sense to everyone else.
And the show uses this dual meaning for maximum dramatic effect. When one character says she's worried another is losing the plot, it's not a casual remark. It's a direct reference to a tragic family history, suggesting he might be going down the same dark path as his grandfather. All of a sudden, that simple phrase is carrying generations of fear.
So just how strong is this expression? Well, it lives in this really useful middle ground. It's way stronger than just saying someone is being silly, but it's also softer and much more informal than calling someone insane or mad. It's a very human way to describe behavior that just doesn't add up. The main thing to remember here is that this is a total staple of informal British English. You will hear it all the time. And it's not just for people. You can absolutely say that a government has lost the plot, or that a company has lost the plot, if their big new plan seems completely irrational.
So losing the plot originally stems from theater and film. Think of a movie that just completely stops making sense halfway through. Now, what if a person did that? When we apply it to people, it basically means someone is acting confused, irrational, or just kind of detached from reality. Second, to see this idiom in action, let's look at the current drama in the fictional village of Ambridge. Right now, the family of a character named Brian fears he is literally losing the plot. He's acting so erratically they're actually worried he has dementia. But in reality, he's just acting super shifty to hide a massive family secret. So does keeping a huge secret actually make you look like you're losing your mind? Well, this phrase perfectly captures the tension of all that rural gossip. Finally, let's talk about how you can use this advanced phrase in the real world. Seriously, this is your ultimate cheat code for sounding like a true Brit, mostly because it completely masters the art of British understanding. It's way stronger than saying someone's just making a mistake, but a bit softer than calling them insane. It can be funny or serious, and we use it for institutions all the time, like saying a government or a massive company has completely lost the plot. Ultimately, mastering losing the plot equips you with a highly versatile, authentic phrase to describe everything from a farmer's rash decision to a totally chaotic government.
Okay, so we've examined our specimens, we've put them under the microscope. What's the big takeaway here? Let's put together our cultural toolkit.
We've just cracked the code on 3 brilliant idioms. So let's pull them all together into a quick little reference guide to make sure they really stick. So let's do a super quick recap. You've got full of the joys of spring for that pure rebound happiness, maybe with a dash of irony. You've got to swan around as that graceful, subtle way to criticize someone's laziness or self-importance. And then you have losing the plot to express everything from lighthearted confusion to serious concern. See, each one is a tool for a very specific social moment.
And this is really the heart of it, isn't it? Mastering a language, especially at an advanced level, isn't about memorizing dictionary definitions. It's about learning to read the air, to decode all that cultural shorthand that native speakers just do without even thinking about it.
And hey, as a little bonus, let's watch this subtext in action with something I like to call kettle culture. Step 1 is the trigger. Any kind of stress, social awkwardness, or bad news. Step 2 is the action. Someone says, "I'll put the kettle on." It's a physical retreat from the tense moment. And step 3 is the reset. The simple act of making and drinking tea creates this perfect, neutral space to just lower the emotional temperature. It is a masterclass in unspoken communication.
The show's world has literally spilled out of the radio.
You can find Ambridge cookbooks in people's kitchens and Ambridge board games on their coffee tables. This isn't just merchandise. It's proof that this show is a massive cultural fixture that has helped shape the very idea of rural British identity for generations.
So, when you boil it all down, The Archers isn't just a story you listen to. It's a world you inhabit. Its unique power comes from blending the completely mundane, like the daily ritual of putting the kettle on, with profound, often heart-wrenching drama. And that blend is what makes its universe feel so utterly and completely real.
So, the next time you're listening to a British conversation, or watching a British film or a TV show, really listen in. Because now that you know the code, you're not just hearing words anymore. You're hearing the hidden stories, ticking away right behind them. Happy listening.
And that kind of leaves us with a final thought. We've just decoded the language and rituals of Ambridge. But what about your world? What are the unseen codes you live by? What's your version of putting the kettle on?
So what we've really done today is give you a method, a way of looking at language like a scientist. And that leaves us with a final question for you. Now that you have these tools, what other cultural secrets are you going to find hiding in plain sight in your very next conversation?
Thank you for watching our exploration of advanced British English through the latest events at Meadow Farm. If you found this lesson helpful for your English studies, please like the video, comment below with the idiom you found most useful, and subscribe to our channel to stay updated on our future content. Thank you for your support.